Hello guys, welcome back. So in one of my previous videos, we discussed on subnetting, how to create a subnet. So in this video, we are going to see how we implement a subnet. So I've already created a diagram. I already made a diagram where I'm going to show you how we can implement subnet. So if we see on the screen, these are the 4 blocks which I have. So in one of my previous topics where discussing subnets, we created 4 subnets. In each subnet, the total number of IP addresses which we have is 62. So 4 subnets, and then we have 62 hosts per subnet. So after that, what I did here is now I connected a router here. Router has 4 switches, switch 1, switch 2, switch 3, switch 4. So they are connected to router. Now I'm going to use these IP addresses to see how we implement that. So the example which we took was from class C, 192.168.3.0, and that is your network ID. 255 is broadcast ID. So what we did, we broke this whole network into 4 parts. All right, so if we start giving IP addresses, so I'll just show you what is the IP address I'll be giving to this PC1. So I will give to PC1, I'll give from this range, and PC1 and PC2. So I'm going to allocate this range to my switch 1. So if this is my PC and I need to give an IP address, so I'll give it 192.168.3, and the last is going to be maybe 3.2. Because 3.1, maybe I'll give to my router. It's up to you. So if this is 3.2, maybe this is 3.3. 3.3. And then this side is going to be 3.1. So if I need to give an IP to a router, it is not recommended, but it's a best practice to give the first IP to the router. So all the admins, they follow a best practice. What they do, they will give the first IP because first IP is 3.1. It starts with 3.0. So then this network will be represented by, so if I want, this network will be represented by 192.168.3.0. That is your network ID for this network. Okay, so router on this side, this is your network ID. And the broadcast ID for this would be, so for this whole group, if I want to send a message to everyone, 192.168.3.63. That's the last IP, right? So this will be the broadcast ID. This will be my broadcast ID, BID, for this whole group. So if I want to send a message to whole group, so this is my network, which is connected to switch 1. So let's assume this is my network 1. So this is the network ID, this is the broadcast ID, and this is your first IP, this is second IP. So similar to that, you can connect 62 machines here. So I've connected only 2 machines, you can connect 62 machines. All right, so let's go to another, like PC3. So which IP can give to this side of the router? So I can give here, let's represent that with a different color. Let's go with maybe this color, 192.168.3.64. Sorry, 3.65 is my first IP which I give to a router. So this side I'll give to router .65 because that's the first IP. So to these PCs I can give, if this is PC3, I can give 66, and to this PC I can give 67. Up to you, because I'm giving in a sequence so that I can save this and make it a proper sequence. Okay, so now what will be the network ID? So if this is the network ID, will be 192.168.3.64 will be my network ID. For this network will be represented by this. This is my net ID, and the broadcast ID would be .127. So that's going to be my broadcast ID. So let me represent that with red color. So this is the broadcast ID. If I need to send a message to everyone in this group, which starts with 64 is the network ID. 65 is the first IP. 66, 67. I can go till 126. because it goes till 1, and 127 is the broadcast ID. Okay, so the third one I can give to this. So on the router side, I can give here, let's go with pink color. I can give 192.168.3 dot, I can go 129. Okay, let's assume this is dot 129 side. Okay, so I can give to this PC dot 30, 130, 129, 130, and to this PC I can go 131. Up to you. Now, I'm maintaining a proper sequence. So what will be the network ID and broadcast ID? So for this, network ID is going to be 192.168.3.128, because 129 goes to a router. So this will be my network ID with which you can represent this network. Okay, so this is my network ID for this network. And what's the broadcast ID? So broadcast ID here would be 192.168 dot, so this will be 3.192. Correct. 128 is my network ID and this is my broadcast ID. So I represent that with red color. This is going to be my broadcast ID for this network, right? So if I need to send a broadcast, I need to send it to 192, and this is going to be my 128. This is my network ID. First IP is 129, 130, 131. I can go till 191, and the last I can give to this. So this is the last network. So what I can do here is give an IP to a router. So I'll go with 192.168.3.193. Correct. So this is my 193. This is going to be 194. Sorry. Let me make it here. This is going to be 194. This is going to be 195. Okay, I start with 193 and I will go 194, 185. So my network ID here is for this network. The network ID would be 192.168.3.192. This is going to be my network ID, and the broadcast ID here would be 192.168.3.254. 255, sorry. Okay, 255. Okay, this is going to be a broadcast ID for this network. Okay, so let's see it again. So for this network, I have given this one. So 0 is my 3.0 is my network ID. 1 is 3.1 is given to this, and then 62 is 63 is my broadcast ID. So I can go from 2 till, or from 1 till 62. So for second network, I have given 64 is my network ID. So this is 64 is my network ID. 127 is my broadcast ID. 127 is my broadcast ID. Usable IPs goes 65 goes to the router, 64 65 goes to the router, 66, 67. So here also the third network, 120 is my network ID, 128, and 192 is my broadcast ID. So I can go 129, which goes here, 129, 30, 31. So I can go till 191. So last one is 192 till 255. So I can go, first is my network ID. This is 192 and 255 is my broadcast ID. So I can go from 193 till 254. Okay, so this is how we assign IP addresses. This is how we use a concept of broadcasting. Sorry, this is how we use a concept of subnetting. Okay, so I hope this is clear. So this is how you create the subnet. Here we try to see how we implement the subnet. So I was having 4 networks. That's where I connected 4 switches. Now this is your default gateway. 3.1 is the default gateway, 65 is the default gateway, 129 is the default gateway, 190. Now these are 4 logical groups. So when you need to send a message to someone outside, you will send it to the default gateway. This router will send it to that switch, and then switches will send it to that particular person. So every communication goes through the router. This is use of subnetting. So this was a full network where we have 1.254. So we have 254 hosts in one network. So what we did, we divide 250 by 4. So we had 62 hosts in each group. So we had a big cake. So what we did is we just broke that. We divide this into 4 parts. That is what is subnetting. We divide it into 4 parts. Now earlier we had 254, okay, divided by 4. 255, 4, 4, 5, 4, 6 are 24, correct. Then 4 are 24, 25, so 14. So is it going to divide it into, or you can just do 62 into 4. 4s are 8, 4, 6, 4, 4, 6 are 24. Okay, so why that much difference? Because in every subnet you will have to take broadcast ID network. So 2, 2, 2, 2. So plus 8, correct? 8 is 16, 4, 5. So that's what gives you 256. So that is the reason earlier you were having how many hosts? Actually, if you go from 0 till 255, so you will have 256. Now you divide by 4. Okay, so 4, 6 are 24, 4, 4s are 16, right? So that's going to be 64 in each. But why there's not 64? Because there's a -2. One is for network ID and one is for broadcast ID. Okay, so that's how we got these numbers. So when you divide it in 4 parts, you have to take network ID and broadcast ID. So I hope this is clear. If there's anything, any other things you want me to include in this video, any other topics, I'll surely include that. But this is one of the most basic concepts in networking. So please do like, subscribe, and share to keep supporting. Thank you. I'll come